Welcome to ADE in Conversation. We want to look at the positive side of elements and things that are going on within this live industry. For example, the potential of NFTs. We have invited two pioneers, Richie Hawtin and Justin Blau, to share their views in a deep dive about the real and perceived values of NFTs, its potential for artists, what the implications are for the future music ownership, and most crucially, whether they are here to stay. Welcome, Richie and Justin, to our show. Hi.
Hi there.
Wow.
Great to be here.
In the studio. Did you hear the discussion we were having earlier, or do you just jumped in?
Yeah, we were listening for the last 10, 15 minutes, just kind of, going over a lot of issues, just about getting our scene back up and running and kind of getting back to business. And I think, what we're going to talk about is, in the meantime, what other things can we do as creatives to also make business and stay inspired and excited.
Yeah. We're going to be discussing something that I have to be honest, I needed to do some research on Google and dive into like rabbit holes of podcasts about NFTs. But maybe, Justin, you can explain in short, in your own words, what NFTs are.
An NFT stands for a non-fungible token. But what it actually is, it's just a certificate of authenticity that you own a digital media file on the internet. That's the very simple way of saying it. So the way that I own a real piece of art in my home, I can also own a quote unquote real official edition of a song or a visual art piece on the internet. And the reason why it's real is because it's actually signed by the artist via the blockchain. So there's a signature that exists that proves that it's real.
Yeah. And why is that so important?
So there's a couple of ways that I think people perceive the value in that signature. The same way, if you look at a baseball card or a Pokemon card, it's pretty easy to recreate a really famous baseball card or Pokemon card. Let's take the holographic Charizard, for example, which I'm sure you've seen. The original Charizards have sold for upwards of $200,000. If you were to recreate that card, it would only cost you 50 cents to actually print it and make it look exactly the same. Yet humans really have an attachment to owning an official edition of something. They have an emotional value of owning an official edition of something. So now imagine, let's go back in time in the music business. If a record sold out at the record store, you'd have to scavenge to find it. If something was completely sold out, a lot of times those records would sell at a premium to whatever they were originally selling for at the market. So this idea of owning something that's unique and native does create emotional value for a collector or somebody who has a really strong affinity for a particular song or for a particular artist. And I think that's why we're seeing so much value accrue to this new space, is because people really do enjoy owning official editions of something in the digital world. And to give you a more specific example that I think a lot of people might understand, one of the first forms of NFTs, even though it's not really an NFT, is the Instagram verification checkmark. It's something that is digitally scarce, that exists only on the internet, yet everybody really wants. And that's kind of what's happening to the entire world of digital media.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And we'll get back to what effect it can have and how we can learn, but also maybe invest and use it in the live industry. Richie, word came out of a new gaming venture. Pixelnix, am I saying it the right way?
Pixelnix, yeah.
Pixelnix. Could you tell us what that exactly is?
Yeah, that is a collaboration with my management company and deadmau5, Joel Zimmerman and his management company, to actually really bring expertise and focus into where we think we're going, which is the digital space. I think NFTs is just the kind of the trendy hype word of the day in a way. Like, why I'm so into this technology is that I believe that navigating and living in the digital space, having ownership over digital items and collectibles is going to be more and more important for our generation, and definitely the generations that are coming up. And so Pixelnix is a way to bring kind of our expertise of the music industry and connect that, so we can bring let's say, this generation of creatives into that new space, maybe a space that they don't understand, and help them find new creative ways to interact with their fans, new economic streams, and also connect them to the next generation, the younger generation who is already living in that space. It's the natural space for them. I talk to my friends about this, my age, and they're like, what do you mean? Why would you want to own something that's digital? I want the real thing. But what we have to remember is a digital item is as real as a piece of, something that we hold in our hands in reality to the younger generation and to more and more people on this planet.
Yeah.
I believe that there will be more money spent on digital goods in the future than physical goods.
Okay,
and
so let's get
it's really exciting for a creative who, at the end of the day, since the late 90s, has been making music, which is a digital asset. We moved away from physical, we moved away from CDs, from vinyl, and music is hanging in, cyberspace or in the ether anyway. So if this technology can help us kind of regain control over that, I think it's super exciting and something that you have to participate in.
I'm really interested in what your exchange of thoughts is on this topic. The two of you, I think you haven't spoken to each other in a while, and I'm like a newbie, and I'm linking it to like the conversation we had earlier in the show, and what we're discussing now says something to me, about the decentralized economy and how maybe a crisis could lead us to some sort of reset or evolution. What are your thoughts on that, Justin? And are you on the same page, the both of you, when it comes to this?
Yeah, I think Richie and I have been talking on text about this stuff for a couple of months now, and we hadn't met prior. I'm obviously a huge fan of Richie's music, and so it was really cool that we started discussing just the potential of this technology to really disrupt everything we know about music. And this idea of the decentralized economy is really exciting. What Richie was talking about specifically, how digital assets will engage with a completely digital world. And for those of you who are listening, I would encourage you to experiment with digital worlds in virtual reality. It's quite incredible. You can actually own land in virtual reality, create your own art galleries. You could create your own digital experiences. And in order to do that, you kind of need to own the assets that are involved in those digital experiences. So if you guys haven't tried, messing around with VR digital worlds, something kind of clicks when you go into a virtual art museum and you see the art that someone else owns, and it kind of all of a sudden makes sense. So I highly encourage for anybody who's like excited to explore this stuff in the same way, Richie's new company is going to explore specific applications in gaming and in virtual worlds. Definitely check it out, because it might change your perspective if you're a little bit doubtful. But where I see this going, in more specifically answering your question with regard to the decentralized economy, is I actually believe NFTs will give artists the ability to give fans revenue share in their actual music rights. And that's something that's a little bit complicated to execute today. But in the future, I imagine I could give fans, 5% revenue share in my next album, or 10% revenue share in my next album, as a reward for either investing, which we would require, certain paperwork for, or even just as a reward for participating in other aspects of my career. So if you have purchased a ticket to come on tour, I could easily give you fractional ownership in the album that I'm touring off of. And that's where things get really interesting, because it kind of reverses the roles of, or I should say, changes the relationship between record label artist and fan. And it kind of gives fans a little bit more ownership of the music that they listen to every day.
Yeah, I also think it's like, looking back in my career, in the very early days, you had a small group of original supporters. In the early 90s, we even had what we called the Plastic Products Fan Club. And people paid a little bit of money to get some discounts on ticket entry to some of our parties and merch, but it was always very one directional. So imagine a future with smart contracts and ownership verification and kind of fractionalizing ownership, that those fans can participate as they help support an artist grow. Maybe, and let's not, people don't get confused of like, okay, are we asking fans to, invest money, maybe, but even just fans who are there kind of spreading the word or coming to your gigs when there's only 5 people on the dance floor and saying, hey, thanks a lot. Here's a token. Let's stay in touch. Let's work together. And it's just a way to really, I think, create a community that engages and continues to develop, evolve, and grow over time. And that's, what do we do as humans? We create connections, we communicate, and we create value together. And if we can create more value and keep those connections connected by this digital technology, I think it can make, all of our scenes, stronger than ever. I actually think it will bring some of the connections that I felt in those early days of kind of DIY culture, when this scene was so small that basically no one in the outside commercial world cared about electronic music. It was just so tight. This can actually kind of bring back that connectivity that we all share a common goal.
Yeah. Well,
absolutely. And just to piggyback off of that really quickly, that is the real power of this technology. When you're a new artist, if you can engage your community in a deeper way, that's the most powerful aspect to building a career, but also, like Richie said, rewarding those fans early on. Today, the way that we interact with fans is via social media, where we don't really control any of the data, or we don't really control the relationship at all. There's an algorithm that kind of acts as a wall between us and our fans in a lot of ways. And, simultaneously with streaming services, and they've done a lot of great for the world, as artists, we're kind of forced to think about, what works for the algorithm. And there are some artists like Richie who, maybe isn't forced to think that way. But in my career, I definitely have started to think that way. And it kind of inhibits your creativity as an artist a little bit in experimentation. So some of the first NFTs that I released, and I've been kind of doing this for 4 years, but more specifically music NFTs in the past 8 months. Some of the first ideas that I released as NFTs were actually ideas that I never would have released on Spotify, because maybe they were just a little bit too weird, or maybe they didn't really fit my brand. But I still spent all this time on these musical ideas, and I wanted fans to hear them and share in them. And fans were actually quite excited about those ideas because they were a little bit different for me. They might just not have worked in the grand spectrum of the rest of my body of work. So it kind of introduces this means of showing fans a new side of yourself, and also connecting with them on a deeper level, as Richie mentioned, and ideally rewarding those people who were really early to supporting you over time.
Yeah. Richie, it sounds like Kanye West, the revolution, get rid of the middleman, everybody's going to be happy. What are the downsides?
Well, I think, let's look at that right now. I think one of the downsides that I think people are seeing in NFTs at the moment is there's a lot of speculation going on. And I think there's a lot of people jumping into the space with dollar signs in their, in their eyes, and missing the opportunity for using this technology to empower, creative artists, and that's, I guess that's why definitely why I jumped into this. And just kind of, I say to my friends, I jumped into the pool, and I didn't even know if there's water in the pool, but it was so exciting that I had to dive in and learn as I was going to, because I believe that there is a lot of positivity in this scene. It's, for me, I think, like Justin said, the streaming services and a lot of the infrastructure that is there right now to help musicians has helped us. It's actually exploded, especially at the electronic music scene, to the far corners of the planet. But at the same time, we have lost some of this direct connection between our real, our fans. We don't have all the data from Facebook or Instagram or Spotify. And again, what Justin said, like, to be able to have that connectivity and to be able to, create with our fans and just communicate and be playful, I think is part of what drives us along. So that can create new economic streams. It can create new opportunities. Some of the fans and some of the people I'm meeting on my Discord server now, we're just having incredible conversations and talking about collaborating. And these are just, these are kind of connections that I've really felt missed over the last like 10 years, as actually the scene has got bigger, but we've all felt like we're kind of getting further apart. And that's not actually why I got into this in the first place. It was about relationships. It was about community.
And I totally agree. And Richie, what's funny is I more recently, one of my fans actually created a Discord server for me, attracted other community members, and then said, hey, we created this community of like 400 people. Do you want to come in and, I'll make you a moderator, I'll make you an administrator. And it was just incredible to see that the community kind of created itself, even without me getting involved. And now I'm in that community on Discord every day, talking to these people and hearing their ideas. And that's not an engagement that's easy to recreate on Instagram or on, or on Twitter even, just creating this open dialogue where fans can communicate with each other, let alone communicate with you, is really special. And in my particular Discord community, the fan who created it did something really interesting related to NFTs, of course. You can verify that you own one of my NFTs, and then the color of your name changes in the server. So all those people who actually have purchased something have one channel to discuss things. And then people that are maybe looking to get involved in a deeper way can chat with those who have already been involved. And it just creates this virtuous cycle of, human connection around art. And like Richie said, even when I started my career, which I was younger, I was 19 years old, the way music discovery worked was primarily through blogs. Spotify hadn't really taken off or barely even existed at that time. And I would share music with my friends. And that's how I would discover new stuff. It was all a social discovery process versus a kind of centralized algorithmic process. And there are benefits to both. But I think, like Richie said, for the first time in years, people can communicate amongst each other to share music in a way that's efficient as compared to the other social media methods that exist.
And what about how it can benefit artists' income? Because that's like the specific, like collecting money after a gig instead of waiting for 6 months, or if you live in a country or continent where there's a lot of corruption, you won't even get your money from the local agencies. Like, is there a way that this could also revolutionize the way artists get their money and help them in that?
So it's interesting. A lot of people talk about blockchain technology facilitating, more transparent payments. That actually only is true if the payment is happening on the blockchain versus off the blockchain, right? So if someone's, paying for a gig, there's typically paperwork involved in an agreement with the venue, with the promoter. And unless all that paperwork was happening and getting executed on a blockchain, it's kind of difficult to take data that's not on the blockchain and put it on the blockchain. You need something called an oracle for that, and we're not going to get into the technicalities of that. Whole other conversation. But to answer your question, it's actually really hard to facilitate payments on a blockchain if they don't originate on the blockchain. So with NFTs, the payment originates on the blockchain, so it's easy to kind of track secondary royalties and all the other things that happen with the NFT after it's created. And I do think that similar things will happen for music royalties in the future, but we're still a little bit of a ways from that becoming practical. The way that I see this, technology really helping artists monetize is really finding those fans that have that deeper connection, that want that deeper connection with an artist, but don't even have a means of achieving it. So to give you a specific example, one of the things that we've done with the NFTs that I've released so far is we've actually given free tickets and all access passes to some of our collectors. And two of my biggest collectors who have spent more money than I ever could have imagined on my collectibles have all access passes, backstage passes to pretty much any show they ever want to come to ever, as long as we can actually facilitate that with the promoter. And, they are so excited about that feature that's actually built into the NFT that they purchased, or the collection of NFTs that they purchased. So creating, external value for fans and figuring out new ways to monetize is a huge part of this technology. It's just not necessarily a way to level the playing field with existing payment structures in music, which is kind of a misrepresentation. A lot of people do talk about that, and I think it is quite exciting. But until all the royalties are actually happening on the blockchain, it's difficult to capture those, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that is what excites me, because, for our electronic music community, I know when I'm playing, there's a lot of music that comes to me that may be demos, unreleased. Maybe they get released on a small label. They do a couple of 100, 1,000 streams. There's really actually no money there. And I think there's an opportunity in dance music that we may be able to, we will be able to lead the way in experimenting with blockchain technology for royalties and payments, and potentially even connecting it to some of the systems that we use to perform, music, whether that's technologies like Tractor or CDJs. We're not talking about a whole infrastructure of radio play and this and that. We're, again, dialing back to this beautiful little DIY culture that started in the 90s, where I didn't have to work with a major label. I made a track. I went down to the record pressing plant. I pressed it. I shipped it via UPS to the record store. They sold some. They sent me some money. It can come back in a small way to that within our community very fast. The greater community, like Justin said, it needs to come all onto the chain before we can actually, create a complete efficient, futuristic music, industry. But in our world, I really think we can get that going much faster, and we should. And it's definitely something that I'm already looking into and researching. For those, I have a technology that we developed, Twitter DJ or Radar. It's very simple technology. It listens to the music I'm playing on Tractor. If I play it for over 30 seconds, it tweets out, "Hey, I've just played this track." So there's maybe two more steps to connect that track, the metadata that's in the MP3, to a digital wallet address, and that person could be getting paid before I'd even finished that track, before it's even finished playing. And so, that's exciting. And I believe that it will take years, for the whole industry to catch up. But let's not wait. Let's lead and make an example and try to empower our community.
Wow.
We're in the dial-up internet stages of what this technology can do. And dial-up internet to where we are today in terms of internet bandwidth and wireless internet, it was a long journey. But the possibilities of cloud computing and the ability that computers have to move way faster than humans is something that we've developed over really 2 decades of time. So if you think about where we are in the world of blockchain technology, decentralized Bitcoin has existed since 2008, 2009, but decentralized applications have only existed for 5 years. So if you think about where this is going, and I like to use the dial-up internet example as kind of the incipiency of that movement, we're at that stage here in how this technology will shape not just music, but creativity as a whole.
Yeah, wow.
And that's kind of why I think for people like Richie and I, we both just get so excited about this, because even though it's early, we want to try to experiment with things, and not every experiment's going to work, but that's part of the process.
Yeah.
Even for us, when I started minting NFTs, we sold them for, anywhere below $100 or, in some cases $99 or $200. And it was just a way for fans to show patronage and to get involved. And, some of those assets are going for 50 to 100 times the price today. We never expected that to happen. That's kind of the beauty of the culture that Richie was talking about, early on in his career, and not quite early on in my career, but sort of, where the community kind of determined the value of an artist without there being any external process. It's just people coming together and saying, this art is valuable. And that's kind of what happens in the physical art world. The only reason why Picasso has so much value is because so many people believe Picasso's to have value. If we lived in an alternate universe and someone looked at a Picasso and didn't think it was that cool, it could only be worth the value of the canvas and the paint that were put into it.
Oh.
So there is all this emotional value that hasn't been captured by music. And Richie said this very well. Music has just kind of been floating in the ether, and we don't even really know how to value it. Is a third of a cent per stream the true emotional value that human beings derive from listening? I don't think so. I think it's quite a bit more. And so any technology that enables us to capture that is really powerful.
We have some questions. One is by Edison. At what stage would you recommend an artist to look up or think about setting up an NFT? Maybe Richie can say something about that, because you're obviously a huge artist with big impact. If I'm a smaller one.
Well, I think, as you know, my opinion on that is like when I got into electronic music, I wanted to learn the machines. Then I wanted to learn how to get that music to the fans, how to find the fans. I got into distribution. So I think, it's part of how you connect to your potential fans. An NFT, the digital space, you're creating at the end a digital good as soon as you finish that piece of music. Perhaps you're doing a vinyl edition, but the digital good is going to go further than anything else. And once you release it, it's going to be out there. So wouldn't it be great to understand the tech so that once you put your creativity out there, that your name is embedded in it on a chain that cannot be destructed or changed, and that you can embed some of your ideas into that. Ideas like, hey, this is open to, if you want to collaborate, if you want to sample this, but send me back 10% of any money you make, like all these different decisions, or just say, hey, this is what I've done, do whatever you want with it. And that kind of freedom of expression, and that the creator is in control, and that any time in the future, someone can look back and trace back to that creator, make a phone call or a video call or a hologram call, whatever it is at that moment, and find that person and know they also own a real, the authentic copy. So this, so long answer, get in now.
Get in now.
Learn about it.
Thanks.
This is part of the future. When we introduced Final Scratch and people were like, you can DJ with an MP3, some people were like, that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. But it did. And now a lot of people who actually said they would never play a digital MP3 are now using CDJs. So in the end, lots of us, more people play digital music than vinyl. Vinyl's still there. But so this is again, it's happening. It's already happened. So
amen, Richie. Justin, another question came in. Do NFTs need to be connected to blockchain, or are there other ways of payment possible?
That's a good question. Just really, I'll get to that in a second. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Richie was
saying. Go ahead.
Last point. Outside of music, there are a lot of digital artists that make beautiful visual work. And one artist's name is Justin, JSTN. And he's a 16-year-old visual artist who has been selling these beautiful landscapes that are three-dimensionally designed for anywhere between 5 and 12 Ethereum. And he's 16 years old. So to those who are just getting involved, who might not have any name, if the content is great that you create, there will be buyers for it. And in my case, like I've purchased one of Justin's artworks just because I absolutely love it. And I actually keep art on my screens behind me. I have digital art all over my home. And it's really fun. The collection process is great. So I guess the point there is no matter how early you are, it doesn't really matter. There are celebrities that come in and try to do this, but they don't have the best content, so it doesn't do well. And then you have people like Justin, who are 16 years old, who creates beautiful content and who's generating 5 to 12 Ethereum on every purchase. But getting back to your specific question, which is, wait, if you don't mind repeating it really quickly, because
the question was, does NFT need to be linked to blockchain, or are there other ways of payments possible?
So a non-fungible token, if we want to break it down very simply, instead of getting too complicated, non-fungible just means that it can't be exchanged for something else because they're different. Fungible means that it can be exchanged like kind. So $1 can be exchanged for $1, €1 for €1, €5 for, 5 single euros. Anything that's non-fungible just can't be directly exchanged for something else.
Okay.
And pretty much everything in our reality is non-fungible. Humans aren't fungible with each other because they're different. Songs are not really fungible in and of themselves. And so, this idea of non-fungible is kind of confusing to people, but in reality, it's pretty much everything in real life. So when you ask the question, can non-fungible tokens exist off a blockchain? Well, theoretically, yes. What makes a non-fungible token exist on the blockchain is just the fact that the blockchain itself is hosting the data of transfer and provenance. But you can create a non-fungible certificate of authenticity that exists off the blockchain. It's just, I don't know how people would value that because the issuer could change it, right? There's nothing stopping the issuer from taking it away.
Clear.
Once something exists on the blockchain, no one can change it. Even the person who, they can't change their mind. I think to give you a specific example, in the early days of crypto, you would have to invest in Bitcoin via exchange, and the exchange would hold all your Bitcoin for you. If the exchange goes down, you don't own that Bitcoin anymore. And this happened with a famous exchange called Mt. Gox. So that was a more centralized way of ownership, of proving ownership on the blockchain. It wasn't a truly decentralized method of ownership. And so the incentive for having NFTs exist on the blockchain is just that no one can change them, and the owner has full permission to resell it, to do whatever they want with it after a purchase.
Okay.
So for NFTs to exist off a blockchain, they're just probably not as valuable. But an example of a quote unquote NFT off the blockchain is, I like to give this one, is diamond and medallion status with Delta. If you have like medallion status with an airline, you can't really trade it. You can't really do anything with it. The airline
but you do
can
have
take it
it
away from.
Yeah,
but
Justin, because of the time, we don't have forever, and you guys are incredibly busy, and we thank you for your time. Really, it was very interesting, and I learned a lot. I do want to end with a question to you both that has to do with what you said, that we're living in the dial-up phase of internet. And a few months ago, I spoke to Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff, who explained to me that in 1987, 1% of all the information on Earth was digitized. And in 2007, that was like 98%. And she says we're living in the second decade of an information revolution. And I was thinking about your conversation and in relation to COVID and the pandemic. And I would like to know, could dance music and the way NFTs are being used be maybe a precursor of a revolution in society, like the way we view art, the way we go out to party, maybe me buying digital clothes, using an avatar, then going to dance to Richie's music? Is the dance scene maybe, or the live music industry could be like an innovator for something that is going to reach the rest of society years to come?
Yeah, I've always felt, and believed that our scene has been very open and has welcomed in technology, of course, by the way we make music since the very beginning. And so I think we are very well positioned to accept this new technology into our social surroundings of dance music, into our studios, into our creative endeavors, and really empower, new economics, new community, stronger connections. And I believe it will be part of how we go forward. Even as we come online and we're going into events and then back into physical, there will be a slow merging between virtual and physical, and this extended reality where we share physical goods and digital goods and unite and bring people together in those shared experiences.
Thank you, Richie. Justin?
I totally agree. To be really specific here, I imagine a world where the Ultra Music Festival live stream isn't just a two-dimensional live stream that you look at on your screen, but people all over the world in the future, even if they can't come to the physical festival, they'll put on a headset or some AR technology that exists, and they'll actually be able to walk the grounds of the festival as though they are there, even if they can't afford to fly to the United States and pay for a physical ticket. I think that's where we'll see this merge exist of physical shows and digital shows, where they actually are all the same. It's just a question of who can attend the physical versus who can attend the digital. And I really do believe that will happen in our lifetime. I think that will take a while. But if you think about all the people around the world that want to go to Ultra, that want to go to EDC, that want to come to ADE, I've actually never been to ADE. I'm really excited to hopefully attend this year. But I've always wanted to go, but it just hasn't lined up or something's happened. So giving everyone the ability to attend these events all over the world while they're actually happening in a deeper way instead of just a two-dimensional stream feels so powerful to me. And then, integrating NFTs into that whole infrastructure is kind of inevitable. But it is exciting.
It's going to happen.
Time.
Thank you so much. Thank you both.
It is, yeah.
Richie and Justin, thank you so much for your time. And I would like to thank you all for watching this live stream. Thank all the guests. And if you're going out in the digital or in the real world, be safe, take care, and we hope to see you back with our second episode of this new show on May 13th. That will be a Thursday. Thank you so much. Until the next time.